What's up, everybody? Welcome back to The Sinner Tarnished. My name is Jake. This is part 4 of the Inner World playthrough. Last time we touched on a few different concepts. Have not read the comments yet, but I'm interested to know what y'all think. Thought I'd take this time to might as well talk about the Catacombs and what they represent, psychologically at least. Before I do that, I picked up quite a few things, so we never really went through the items, so let's do that now because obviously they are incredibly important in understanding the lore. So Flask of Crimson Tears is a sacred flask modeled after a golden holy chalice that was once graced by a tear of blessing. Filled with crimson tears, this flask restores HP with use. Rest at a site to replenish. The one washed up on the gravesite was sure to die, until this flask offered its gift of rejuvenation to seek the Elden Ring. So I wonder if that means that everybody who is able to drink a flask, they are on the same quest that we are, to seek the Elden Ring. Which I know you're probably like, yeah, no, duh, but not all of their... It seems to be only a select few Tarnished are actually on that quest. Same thing, but with Cerulean Tears, a relic of a physic chemist, priest of the Erd Tree. That's super, really, really interesting to me because the Erd Tree renounces science, basically. The Erd Tree represents kind of like faith, religion, Catholicism, and then, you know, everything else represents science. Like the Antichrist, the anti-God, the soulless, cold art of science. So it's interesting that there would be a chemist, priests of the Erd Tree would be chemists. Anyways, harnesses the power of the crystal tears, which only form after the passage of many moons. Various special effects are bestowed upon the drinker, dependent on the specific mixture of crystal tears. Rest at a site to replenish. Basins are placed at the feet of minor Erd Trees throughout the lands between in order to collect their crystallized tears. So, do you guys take it then that each minor Erd Tree has its own unique purpose? Like, it's not necessarily supposed to be a smaller version of the Erd Tree that we see in game, but they each have their own unique tears that they shed, and then those tears are used in various mixtures, and that's the purpose of them. Who knows? Memory of Grace. The memory of first grace, which once guided bygone Tarnished to the lands between. Lose all runes and return to the last site of grace visited. It is merely a cycle. Stand before the Elden Ring, become the Elden Lord. The memory of first grace, which once guided bygone Tarnished to the lands between. Spectral steed whistle. Upon his death, the spectral steed, blah, 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 blah. And then this one. This one's pretty awesome. Sorry, my mic's... astrology tool used by members of the Carian royal family. A stolen part of a larger instrument. Allows the viewer to better see faraway things. During the age of the Erd Tree, Carian astrology withered on the vine. The fate once writ in the night skies had been fettered by the Golden Order. So this is like a perfect example of what I was just talking about with the wondrous physic, that astrology is kind of like one of the first sciences, is basically renounced by the Erd Tree, and specifically the Golden Order. they don't want anything standing in their way of their truth, that there's a God, that he created everything. There's no use for science because faith tells us everything that we need. So yeah, that dichotomy will become incredibly important once we get to the eternal cities, because I believe, well, we'll just leave it. We'll leave it for when we get there. We can actually talk about it when we get there. But yeah, I mean, super interesting. Just from the very first few items that we get, it's might as well talk about him too. So we just got this from beating the Grave Warden. One of the two knights, dubbed the Wings of the Storm, despite his banishment, he rejected the invitation of the grace-given Lord, aka Morgott, instead keeping watch over a masterless castle for many years, gaining renown as a hero of the fringes. Dubbed one of the two knights of the Wings of the Storm. Despite his banishment, he rejected the invitation, instead keeping watch over the masterless castle. So it seems like he was banished to that castle. No, shit, I didn't talk about the... So, the Catacombs are... I haven't actually put a ton of thought into what they could represent. To me, when I go into places like caves, catacombs, things like that, it's like an automatic, we are no longer in the light of Marika's consciousness type of thing. We are dwelling, we are residing in her unconscious for the moment. Things that she can't see are things that are repressed. So, yeah, it's I think obviously, like, the catacombs are supposed to, the way that the Erdtree grows and nourishes itself seems to be from corpses of the dead. And that's why, you know, the jars are what they're collecting corpses. It seems like blood is used to grow the various trees in the lands between, including the Halig tree. What do I want to do now? Go south, maybe? Yeah. We can go talk to Blaidd real quick. So that's just another thing on the list that I kind of want to explore with this foundation of human psychology, is what the catacombs could represent. Going the right way. I just started randomly running. I think so. Yeah. No, I don't really want to go in here. Sorry, it's hard to... These concepts are like... like I said in my lore video, first of all, the lore of the game is difficult enough, right? Like, it's mysterious enough, and then to try to connect it to depth psychology is like it's just a whole nother layer of difficulty. Where are you at, boy? You're up here, right? Where are you? There you are. So yeah, there's gonna be moments that you're probably like, dude, what the hell are you talking about? And I'm just trying to piece it together.
Who goes there? Carly sent you, did he? Ever the bloody busybody. Maybe to him you don't seem so strange. The name's Blaidd. I'm looking for a man who goes by Darrowell. He fled somewhere nearby. Or so I've heard. Come and tell me if you find him before I do. I can offer you ample reward. Darrowell is nothing but a traitor, and in need of a fitting end to his tale. Darrowell is in need of a...
If you say so, man. So Blaidd being Ronnie's shadow, Ronnie's... Whenever Blaidd is talking, think about what Ronnie would hate to have come out of her mouth. So he talks about loyalty, traitors. He's very like, I mean, we'll learn further on in the game, but he's very like caring and peaceful and God. I was standing behind you. God damn it. So it's funny that she's basically traitor of like what is happening, what the current status quo is. You know, she's rebelling against it, and her shadow is hunting down that. And it's funny that her shadow would hunt down that rather than her, because she kind of respects that in other people, the rebellious, going against the grain type of mentality, because she can't stand when people are just blindly doing what they're supposed to do, especially when it's clearly not working. You bleed? Curious to know what you guys think the most difficult enemy in the game is. To me, it's either these bastards or it's the oh god, what are they called? The things with like 8 arms, and you can kill them with healing spells. Why am I forgetting the name? Those things are just terrible. I think if you had 2 or 3 of them, you like, they would dominate the world. They would kill absolutely every single boss in game easily. So this one, let's go here. Yeah, so it's very fitting that like her shadow is basically going after her, like, in a sense, if you think about it. Like, she's trading and rebelling, and that's what Darrowwill did. Don't die. What the hell? I'm not kidding. I've never ever seen that before. Incantation scarab. What the hell? Golden scarab worn directly on the head. These scarabs roll clumps of incantations during their labors. Slightly reduces FP cost of incantations, but increases damage taken. As the scarab approaches death, it abandons its rolled treasure, and stretches its wings wide for the long journey to its home nest. So scarabs are actually found in ancient Egypt, and essentially what they are is they're dung beetles. I mean, that's what they are. But the ancient Egyptians thought that they were something far more than that. That they represented kind of like this godly. What are you doing back here?
You will also partake in their hunger until the flood
Okay,
gives.
all right, very good. They saw them, the things that they were rolling up, as like the seeds of life, and that the dung basically was like a mother's womb, and inside of it was like this unlocked potential, this like mystery of the world, this, and it's really cool that FromSoft kind of played off that, and like dung beetles literally roll poop, but their offspring are in that poop. So like the ancient Egyptians would see like this thing coming out of the dung and think to themselves like, holy shit, like this is a miracle, or like this is a sign from God. So it's funny that they are also rolling treasures for us, you know, they health or upgrade materials, or after the war, or whatever it is that they've been rolling on the ground, and just kind of collected through their journeys. It's cool to me. And I believe it was the ancient Egyptians who also started alchemy. I think that's the origin of it. I could be wrong on that, but I think that's true. Should probably look into other ancient Egyptian philosophies and see what else they took as inspiration. Philosophy is like such an interesting topic to me, and has only been furthered by this game, honestly, because there's so much of it in this game, and they take various pieces and impart them, like for hold please. Like for example, I don't know if you could, yeah, it's a philosophy, I suppose. It's like a way of looking at the world. Animism is kind of like the first, it's not necessarily a faith, it's just like the first way of almost viewing the world. And it's, what animism is the belief that everything has like a soul or a divine spirit. And essentially all of our more modern structured religions stem from animism. They all come from that belief system. So there's varying degrees of animism. I think probably the most widely accepted one, or like the most widely used one, is that animate objects have spirits. So like trees, plants, any animal, no matter what it is, and that's very much what the ancestral followers practice. And from that philosophy, or quote-unquote religion, that's where words and things like amulets, talismans, sorceries, shamans, all that kind of stuff is birthed from the practice of animism. So it's funny that like we attach talismans to ourselves, and we have amulets, and we have incantations was one. So we'll talk about that when we get there, but I thought it was
Tarnished, are we?
interesting.
I wonder you should turn up here. I am Selen, a sorcerer, quite plainly. Why are you here?
I want to know why you have a cement box on your head.
A yen for glintstone sorceries. I dare say your proclivities are far from ideal. Oh well, perhaps nurture will defy nature, with a bit of luck. But one must choose one's masters wisely. I was exiled from the Academy of Raya Lucaria as a reviled, apostate witch. Do you still wish to learn from me?
Oh yeah.
Well, you are a piece of work. Very well. You are now my protege in glintstone sorcery. But I refuse to coddle, or cast kind words. Never. Anticipate grievances, young apprentice.
Here, you can have this.
Is that a scroll? Takes me back to my academy days. Very well. This is sorcery with which I'm not entirely unfamiliar. I'll be sure to incorporate it into one of your lessons.
Thank you.
Never lose that inquisitive spirit, my apprentice.
All right, let's learn a little bit about glintstone. And just keep in mind, when, for our purposes, in the way that Jung saw, and I think it's pretty apparent kind of in the world today even, is faith and science are constantly at odds with one another, constantly butting heads. the further and further that science progresses, the smaller and smaller box that God, in a spiritual or religious context, is kind of shoved into. You know, things like we learn the age of planet Earth, and it goes against what the scriptures say. So it's constantly proven that that science doesn't necessarily need God. I forget who said it, but there's a really great quote where it's like, a scientist once said, "All we need is one miracle, and then we can prove everything else." And faith is almost the exact opposite of that, where it's like everything's a miracle, everything is done by the hand of God through faith, all that kind of stuff. And I actually see the primeval current as like scientific inquiry, scientific progression, things like that. As like a current is something that it goes in one direction, you're not stopping it, and it's kind of like this eternal thing. And that's kind of what humans do, is we just look around the world today. I mean, it was 60 years ago that we put somebody on the moon, and now we have a more powerful version of that computer in our pockets. So that current is taking us through scientific progress. And that's kind of how I see Miyazaki as explaining the primeval current. But more on that later. Just wanted to give you guys kind of an insight onto when I see magic and when I see certain things like the primeval current, these are the thoughts that are immediately popping into my head, just based off of Jung's teachings and then also the world that you see today. So glintstone pebble. The glintstone serves as a conduit launching magical projectiles at foes. The sorcery cast freely is the universal first step on the journey to true knowledge of sorcery. Glintstone stars. One of the glintstone sorceries, Raya Lucaria. A sorcery of the Olivinus Conspectus, which attracts sorcerers from Celia, town of sorcery. Glintstone arc. Fires horizontal arc, granted to sorcerers who depart from the academy to embark on journeys, in order to fend off large groups of would-be adversaries. Fools often roam in packs. Crystal barrage, the sorcery of the crystal cadre, a group of sorcerers who pursue the wisdom of stone. The sorceries locked in the faint cogitation of the crystallians. Scholar's armament, taught to the knights of the cuckoo by the academy as payment for their contract. Same there. Glint blade phalanx, bestowed upon the enchanted Carian knights, who combined this art with their swordsmanship to maintain pressure upon their foes, striking in waves of steel and sorcery. Carian Slicer, this thing is super OP, super awesome. Even among the Carian sword sorceries, this is a notably effective technique. So right off the bat, the way that I think of the Academy of Raya Lucaria as like a university. Universities, and rightly so, don't really give a flying fuck about religion or faith or anything like that. They just give you the science of the world around us through the scientific process, whether it's history, chemistry, biology, blah blah blah. And universities are kind of the antagonist or the antithesis to things like churches. One is gaining knowledge through science. The other is gaining, I don't want to say knowledge, but is gaining what they believe to be knowledge through faith. So, like, to me, Crystal Barrage, a sorcery of the Crystal Cod, a group of sorcerers who pursue the wisdom of stone, to me that's like geologist. And then stars, so Celia would represent things like cosmologist. So it's just varying degrees of like what they would be studying essentially in school. Kind of a long-winded thing, but again, it's like for something like this, we have to build such a strong foundation that, and like nothing that I just said there was necessarily like had really anything to do with human psychology. But like I said in my lore video, this game, it doesn't just talk about human psychology. It's multi-layered. What it's really getting at is the split and division that comes specifically when people get so dogmatic about their thinking, that the world very quickly turns into an us versus them type of situation. And yes, it's I think that. So here's how I see it. Here's like big picture how I see. To me, Marika is just a person. A person. Think of Marika as just being a person in today's society. Through her varying acts through life, and through her journey through life, she has made decisions and has found herself in a thought pattern that no longer serves her. It seems that she was once completely blind to like the outside world, to things like knowledge, to things like science, because she was so heavily involved in faith. And then something happened where you could make the argument that Godwyn actually did die, and Godwyn is her son outside of the lands between, and that directly it rocked her foundation of faith, because I think when things like that happen to people who are incredibly religious, they start to question, why would God let this happen? I put all my faith and put all of my energy into this, and then this horrible act occurred, and I'm completely lost. And this is a process. This is not necessarily this particular instance or this particular example, but individuation usually starts with this like kind of life-altering call to action, and it's usually a very traumatic one where the foundation of who you once were gets rocked, so you need to look inwards and reevaluate the things that you put your faith in, the things that you value in your life. And if you look inwards and you see that you're repressing things and things are way out of bounds, that you can see from her inner world that it's pretty fucked up. And you can see in the outer world, shit, I mean, you just literally turn on TV and it's pretty fucked up out there. So to me, she just represents, what if one person, right, does this? What if one person goes through this process and they make their inner world better? What effect does that have on their immediate family, on their community, on their different social structures? And what if those people started going through that process, right? And it's clear that the world is in desperate need of that, both this world and the real world. So that's kind of like, that's what I've gathered from what I believe the main story of the game is. So these, like, it's all within her. It's all within her psyche. But the things like the Nox and the Golden Order represent the different splits in her psyche. She chose to go one way, the faith way, and repress more of her scientific inquiry. So that's a very long-winded, like, probably random explanation, but there's going to be a ton of those in this playthrough. So just get used to it. You might as well get used to it now. And I hope that makes sense. I mean, again, these, it's not an easy thing to do, to try to explain these types of concepts in the way that, like, I'm viewing it. It's also not just right. Like, you guys can be like, dude, you're fucking crazy. What are you talking about? Let's get him. God, you're big. Look where my head's at. Do they do this for a reason?
Darrowell. Rotting in a cell is no true justice. No. This is where it ends for you.
Ooh, ooh, ooh. Jesus, Blaidd. Come on, boy. Don't die. We did it.
Right. There you are. Had to work for it, but it's done. Don't say I'm not a man of my word. Here's your prize.
Thank you.
Oh yes. I should say, if you venture north to Raya Lucaria and come across a venerable blacksmith who's a little on the large side, tell him I sent you, and he'll be sure to treat you right. I owe you one, I reckon.
Yeah. According to Jung, every archetype by necessity has to have a shadow. So even though that they are just a part of our unconsciousness, in that we ourselves, our persona has a shadow, each of our archetypes that we inhabit from time to time also has a shadow. Which is why I believe that I still can't tell if it's certain archetypes that are represented as Empyreans, or if it's a person who, when they're born, has a balanced system, but as they develop, completely steer towards one direction. And then at that point, they are chosen to be Empyreans. And then they are given a vessel to put everything that goes against what they're thinking into that vessel. So that way they are just like one singular thought moving in one direction. But yeah, I'm still trying to figure out exactly what Empyreans are meant to be. Let's see, how long is that? 40. Let's go for a little bit longer. As I'm picking up these butterflies, I'm immediately going to, because we know that there's 3 butterflies. There's the nascent, the smoldering, and the Aeonian, which represent Melina, Mikola, and Melania. And then there's also 3 buds, like crystal buds, rhymed crystal buds, and then the sacrificial bud, which again represents something. I still haven't quite figured that one out. It could be the same 3 people. And then you also have the 3 wolves, right? And then you have the 3 sisters, the towers where Ronnie is at. So the game is definitely trying to tell us there's something of import with the number 3, and to me, I think it's highly likely that that those 3, although they are 3 people in game,
hello?
They each probably hold within
Might I
themselves
bend your ear for a
their
moment,
own
please?
psychological force.
My name is Irina. I've escaped from Castle Morn to the south. The servants there have rebelled. I can't be sure what it is. My eyesight's been weak since birth, you see. But I swear I heard frightful howling from all over. My good father secreted me out the castle, but decided himself to stay. He says it's his duty. As commander. I fear for father's life. The servants are full wrath, filled with hatred for every one of us. They've since come for every one of the companions I escaped with. They haven't spared a soul. I fear it's no different at Castle Morn. Please, I implore you, would you mind taking a letter to my father? At the castle, my sole wish is that he escape, even if his honor should be the price. Please. I just want him to be safe. Thank you. Dearly. Then please, take this. Deliver it to my father, who remains in the castle, if you please. Please, he can be stubborn.
So, in part 3, I talked about the runes and how they represent eyeballs, in particular the pupil development of the eyeball, and the pupil is how we light enters the eye. That's how we see the world. That's how we make the decisions that we make. All this kind of stuff. So the lower level runes are people who are, you can almost think of them like they're in kind of like this brainwashed state where they're not really interacting with the world, the reality of the world. They're not getting any light, external light, if you will. They're kind of, they're taking, it's almost like faith. Like they're taking things at face value. They're not really doing any sort of inquiring of their own. And so you look at her, and we know her to later become like the maiden of the three fingers, and the maiden for the Lord of Frenzy Flame. And think about what you're left with when you don't have the ability to see, when your entire world is darkness. Think about what that does psychologically to you. Let me ask it this way. How many of you have been at home with nothing on, by yourself, no TV, no podcast, no music, no nothing, just by yourself sitting in a room alone? My guess is very, very, very few of you. Or how many people these days just fall asleep in a dark room with no TV, with no podcast, no music, blah, 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 blah. Like, I believe that chaos is like this maddening effect that happens when we get so consumed with our thoughts, with things that are happening on an internal level, that it drives us to really, I mean, like, go insane. Like, you become obsessed with your thoughts. If you have people turn on the TV, turn on music, turn on iPod or podcast, whatever it is, to kind of escape that, right? Because we've all heard the phrase that, like, oh, me left alone with my thoughts is like a very dangerous thing. That's what this represents. I mean, she is just left alone with her thoughts. And that, just like Shabriri, who gouged his eyes out and became kind of like the embodiment of madness, of chaos. It's who we are when we're left alone with our thoughts. And that's a very dangerous, scary place to be. For most people. It's not for, some people are just fine alone with their thoughts. But for the majority of people, being left alone with just you and your thoughts can quickly turn to a very dark place. And I believe that that's why the chaos is associated with people who either lost their eyesight, who don't have eyes. I believe that that's what that means. Kill him. Kill him. Kill him. This is not good. Mm-mm. Whoa, big fella. Whoa, whoa. Are you fucking kidding me, bro? Son of a bitch. I don't even know why I'm like bothering killing you guys. Just gonna get to Castle Morn and we'll wrap it up there. And I'm gonna try and do it without dying. I'm gonna Try and do it by grabbing those souls. Runes. Sorry. Let's look at this. These misbegottens killing the like soldiers is such like it's such a beautiful way to show the war against the war of the unconscious against the consciousness. Like, they're so sick of being repressed and hidden in the dark that they're starting to turn on the more ordered, structured version of themselves. I often wonder if the pot at the base of the tree in this motif is supposed to represent the Giant's Forge. If the Giant's Forge through flame grants essentially a new world order, a new epoch. Actually, let's how much time we got left here? Not a ton. I'm gonna give this Black Knight a shot here, and then we'll end it here, and we'll do Castle Morn. Castle Morn deserves its own video anyway, so just get there and we'll do Castle Morn in the next part. Ay, ay, ay. I hate how like long is that. I can extend that move. Got him. We got him. Knight Rider's Flail. Now let's take a peek at that super quick. I want to buy something from this merchant, then we'll wrap it up. A flail with 2 additional bludgeoning heads. weapon of the knight's cavalry who ride funeral steeds. The large spikes make it highly effective in inducing blood loss, but also demand higher dexterity to wield. So here's another example of 3. So a flail with 2 additional bludgeoning heads, so a total of 3. And then obviously the 3 fingers.
I'm all set.
On boy. I actually like this armor. Got it. Should I buy that? I might as well, huh? So this actually has, so the Erdtree's old sap becomes amber, treasured as the most precious of jewels in the age of Godfrey, the first Elden Lord. Primordial life energy resides inside. Alright, I think that's a good place to wrap it up. Next time we will go talk about Castle Morn, the Misbegotten's there, what's happening there, and then, yeah, let me know how you are liking the series. Give this a like if you wouldn't mind, and consider subscribing. I mean, it really means a lot. I say it all the time, but I'm just a dude. I'm just a guy with a full-time job and a family and all that kind of stuff. And I just enjoy doing this stuff, and I enjoy talking to people, and I enjoy, talking about different theories and things like that. And if that's something that you like, just please subscribe, join my Discord, and stay tuned for more lore videos to come. I just finished the script for my next one, and I hope you guys like it as much as you did the first one. So, much love, thanks for watching, and I'll see you in the next part. Peace.